Well, before we get started, I appreciate you coming on the show. Could you just give us a little bit about your background and your experience in the industry?
Yeah, definitely. So my name's Rahul. I've been in e-commerce for around 6 years now, coming to 6 years. When I first initially started, it was in drop shipping, kind of like the usual exposure a lot of people get to e-commerce. So lost a lot of money there, but ended up, making it back through maybe one or two successful stores. Ended up exiting two of the brands that I've been recently on and navigating towards the agency side over the last 3 years, I would say. Um, from there, I'm leading, head of paid marketing at the agency. So we work with a lot of 7 to 9 figure e-commerce brands, mostly everything to do with acquisition. So work with some pretty exciting brands that are spending, 6, 7, 8 figures a month on marketing budget, and we manage everything from paid social and search. So pretty exciting team, growing a lot year over year, and pretty excited to see what we end up doing this year.
When I appreciate your honesty with the drop shipping part. Not all ventures are a success, and in the social media world, everybody's Shopify store is seven figures in the screenshots. So I appreciate you sharing the
Yeah.
honesty point of view there.
Yeah, I think
Um,
dropshipping is a great place to start because it just teaches you like the harsh reality of how to actually just make money. I think if you go like that really branded route, it's your first brand, especially like a lot of CPG founders, it becomes really difficult, and they rely on almost like investment money to kind of grow the brand. When in reality, if you kind of come from a drop shipping background or just like a bit more scrappy, you make things work a lot easier without all this additional funding that's needed.
and did you work with any agencies when you had your own stores, or did you handle everything yourself or in house?
Yeah, I did everything in house. So I did meta ads, I did influencer management, I did email. So one of my influencer tactics were one of the brands were like art brands, right? So it was like motivational artwork. So I wanted to get it in front of celebrities. So I would go into like celebrities. So let's take Drake, for example. I would just go through his following, and I would just make sure I
Mm.
find everyone that has the lowest follower count. I would reach out to them and kind of build a relationship through the brand, send them artwork, and would be like, "Hey, would love if Drake could, if you could, show this to Drake." Essentially, so that's how I got in touch with a couple of celebrities, was through someone else, through a lower follow account who were more likely to respond, and then I would get the celebrities to do like a story post or something like that. So that was like my little influencer hack to get into like a big TAM.
Yeah, very interesting. And I mean, we're talking, how many years ago was this?
This brand was 3 years ago.
Okay. I was going to
Yeah.
say, we're talking on a small linear scale in the grand scheme of how long the world's been here. But I mean, even 3, 4 years ago, I feel like influencers has really skyrocketed over the past like 2 to 3, 3 to 4 years. So it sounds like you might have been a little ahead of the curve there.
Yeah, massively. I think influencers is such a good strategy to also launch your own brand on.
Mm.
Like if you just look at how social commerce is today with the rise of like TikTok shops, it's I think Amazon is also releasing a similar version, and Meta also wants to compete in the whole social commerce game. I think it's just like a massive movement that we all need to get part of. And if it's not in your mix, it's good to try and figure out how to get influencers, or at least customer seeding, or some sort of program into your marketing mix, because it just provides additional touch points. Like the customer buying journey isn't as simple as what people think it is. It's not like see a meta ad, click on it, buy. It's like see a meta ad, go back, maybe research, maybe go on YouTube, TikTok. So it's quite a long journey that you need to account for. So having that in the mix really helps with the buying behavior.
And you said product launch. I'm not going to say the name of the company. I'm interested if you can pull it from what I say, but a recent product launch, a protein bar company, was sending stuff to influencers
Yeah.
everywhere. Did you see that?
Yeah, it was all over my Twitter and my LinkedIn, and people were constantly talking about it. So it's like, I feel like that is exactly the way. If I launch another brand soon, it would be through influencers or through some type of seeding program.
Yeah, yeah. It gets the conversation going, which is important. That's one thing. I've had two other podcasts recording today, and both of them were mainly focused on brand oriented marketing or just kind of like earned media, and just kind of thinking about that. Like marketing to make people talk about you versus marketing to make people click a button and purchase that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like I think there's a time and place for brand and performance marketing, and I think you just need to decide where you fit when you like launch a new brand. For example, like a lot of founders kind of overly index on focusing that, hey, I need to be just brand, brand, brand. I can't mention these things. And it's like in reality, no one knows your brand just yet. Like you don't have to be as harsh on yourself around the brand guidelines. So I think there's a balance a lot of people are missing out on, and they should just definitely focus on like figuring out what it takes to actually push product out the doors first.
For sure. And part of doing that is kind of segueing into our conversation today, performance marketing. But, you know, most importantly, or one of the most important parts of performance marketing is auditing and reporting on the performance so you can optimize it that way. That's one thing that at BrighterClick, and it sounds like, you know, your agency as well is a high priority is just that client communication and making sure that there is good reporting structured so that the team can optimize on the things that they're doing and then the client can understand what's going on. When it comes to Facebook ad reporting for your agency or for you in particular, do you have any sort of templated structure or approach that you generally follow with you and your team when it comes to putting out reports or audits?
Yeah. So audits will definitely be different to the reporting, but how we do the reporting is quite unique for each client. So we have a wide variety of clients on board that focus on certain different KPIs. The main ones we like to get them to focus on, if it's performance marketing in particular, is things like you've got your MER or blended ROAS, you've got your NCPA, so whatever your new customer acquisition cost is. Um, then you've got meta CPA, then you've got your new customer return on ad spend. Those are like the kind of 4 to 5 key, metrics we like to focus on, because our job as an acquisition agency is, one, to make sure we're efficient as possible on new customer acquisition, and we want to make sure we're able to track that day over day. So how we usually like to set up the reporting is we'll have a monthly spreadsheet and a daily spreadsheet of how we're tracking for those metrics, along with other metrics like, it could be new customer revenue volume, returning customer revenue volume, those sorts of things. And it can get quite messy, but the main focus is, what are we trending for new customer day over day? What are we trending for, spend day over day, those sorts of metrics. And then for some of the clients, we like to also track things like contribution margin, if that's really, really important to them. How can we maximize contribution margin? And then also things that help drive, essentially your bottom dollars, like net profit and things like that. So it is quite unique from client to client. Like one surprising thing I've learned in the last like 12 months or so is not everyone actually knows what their cogs are. Not everyone knows how much how much they're spending on OpEx. So it's very refreshing to kind of have those discussions. Some clients are quite like closed books. Some clients are a bit more open to share it. So it's just all about how you communicate those things in terms of like, hey, this is going to help us help you. I'm not interested in figuring out what your OpEx is across the business. I'm just here to figure out how much we can actually realistically spend on a paid platform at like an efficient CPA. Like, what's our true target CPA? You'll notice a lot of clients will approach you and say, oh, yeah, as long as we hit a 3 ROAS on platform,
The
like spend
spends
as much as you
unlimited.
want. Yeah, spend as much as you want. It's like in reality, you probably your business will probably go under if we keep acquiring customers, but you're not retaining them. Like you have no LTV whatsoever, or you're not dropping enough products to keep them excited to come back. So it's all about kind of figuring out what the balance is and also how much we can afford to spend for a customer.
Yeah, and all that sounds great. One thing that we look at in our agency as well is even kind of modifying what certain teams look at for their metrics. Like creative is a big thing for us right now. We have creative strategy and production as a service and doing media buying, I'm sure in 2024, 2025, you're prioritizing that as well. Some of our clients just come to us for creative, so we're not doing the media buying that piece. So what I look at with our media or with our creative strategy team is something we call creative success rate, which is, you have brief 1, brief 2, brief 3, and let's say we're doing 1 brief per month. Let's look at brief one, or each brief for simplistic sake, has 10 creatives in it. All 10 creatives have been tested with proper spin to validate if they're performing or not. What percent of those creatives outperform the 28-day average CPA for that account when the brief started getting tested? So let's say brief one is 10% outperform the 28-day CAC average or CPA. How can we get to 12 or 15% the next brief? How can we get to 15, 20 the next brief? How can we keep improving that brief over brief so that we can make sure we're driving things in the right direction that way?
Yeah, that's really insightful, and it's some we apply a similar kind of principle, but it's more so around. Let's say we have a newer client come on board. It's kind of figuring out the hit ratio. So we like to have like a hit ratio of like, okay, we've launched X amount of X amount of ads with X amount, and it's been X amount of dollars. Based on that, what is the calculation of how many ads actually were in the top performing ads based on their KPI? Like, let's say it hit a 2x ROAS at X amount of spend. So that way we're able to calculate like a hit ratio. And then the goal becomes, okay, if we know what the hit ratio was before, how can we get a much higher hit ratio? And does that become we launch more ads? Does it become we launch less ads but higher quality because we're really focusing on particular messaging that we want to dial in for a brand? Or does it become a combination of both, that we need to launch more volume and a higher quality? Again, quality is very subjective, but it's just one of the things to take into account when you want to increase like your winning hit ratio for ads.
Yeah, for sure. And when you're talking about metrics, I know you mentioned a couple of good metrics earlier that matter to you. What metrics do you not care as much about? I mean, are you looking at hook rate, hold rate, CTR, all the front end metrics, or what's your thoughts there?
We look at it, but it's funny. So I had this conversation yesterday with someone, um, and if you truly think about it, your hit ratio and your thumb stop and like hook rate and things like that, those matter on a creative level for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there isn't actually like a true direct correlation between, hey, I'm going to have a really high thumb stop ratio and I'm going to have a really efficient CPA on Meta. If you think about it, there are moments where we can have a really engaging or really, quite clickbait, I would say, first 3 seconds, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to correlate to a really efficient CPA. We've had thumb
Mm-hmm.
stop ratios of like 12 or 15 in comparison to 60, and the 12 and 15 will continuously outperform the 60. So if you truly look at all the data, there is actually like not much correlation between those. One metric we do look at is spend, as an indicator. So let's say if we launch like a bunch of ads into a CBO, spend is a strong metric we'll look at, that, hey, Meta is actually giving spend to this creative. There must be a reason Meta is giving spend to the creative. If we take like engagement metrics and everything aside. So the creative team does look at things like thumbs up ratio, click through rates, and all that sort of stuff. But that's just a better guide them on how to make creatives that align with both that and also like in platform metrics like your CPA. Do you
Well,
guys
that's an interesting.
do you guys usually use thumbs up and all those other metrics as well?
It can kind of like you're saying, it matters for creative. You know, Charlie and I, because she normally co-hosts this show with me, we're talking on a previous episode, and I said something effective like, all metrics can matter, but very few matter as a standalone, other than like return on ad spend or CPA. Like matter in terms of can tell you the full picture, right? Like just looking at CTR can't really tell you a full picture of how that ad performed. So we'll look at, hook rate, hold rate, CTR, those types of things on the creative side. If we see a medium performer and we try to see how we could potentially move that medium performing ad into a top performer, with the idea that, you can iterate top performers and hopefully get some more top performers, but you can also iterate some medium performers and have a lot higher chance of success with that versus just starting completely net new from scratch that way. And so
Yeah,
we'll look at, your hook rate, hold rate, et cetera, to see what needs to be changed on that.
yeah, I know a lot of our strategists look at like hook rate a lot to see if is there anything we can do to increase it, or even like thumbs up ratio, quite similar. Like how can we increase like the first 3 seconds or make it a little bit more relevant? I think one thing we did as a test was like, let's try and make it as most the most ridiculous hook as possible, like throw like a shampoo across the room or something like
Mm.
that, versus something that actually correlates more closely to the brand, and it could be like just like the dripping of the shampoo on a palm, where it makes a little bit more sense. Um, and that way you're still able to. I think the focus with Thumbstop, and I think a lot of strategists need to know, is like you want to make it engaging, but you also want to make it relevant to the brand.
Yep.
Making it like super meme focused or anything, it doesn't really provide that relevancy, and you end up dragging the wrong sort of audience into your ads.
And I'll give you an example of how we failed one time with that is, we were working with a platform that creates job application resumes for you. So you
Yeah.
tell it what you've done, your history, and it creates all the bullet points with all the copy that way. And we were struggling with it to get the right traffic in, because you think somebody might see that ad. Are they ready to make a resume at that exact moment? Probably not. And there wasn't good attribution between email and Facebook, but we did meme ads where it was people complaining about the resume, tweets, things like that. Huge CTR spike, huge, but it was driving
Yeah.
all the wrong traffic because people were expecting to not want to do a resume because they were engaging with content that talked bad about resumes
Right.
that way. So, like you said, relevant. It's kind of like on the SEO side, spending all your time trying to optimize for domain authority instead of traffic, which is what really matters. The thumb stop, the hook rate matter, but don't get caught up on just increasing that percentage. Get caught up on figuring out what works to make people make an action that way.
Yeah, 100%. And that kind of leads to the point as well on like iterations, like you were mentioning. Like one thing that I've been talking to a lot with the meta reps this year is what actually an iteration kind of looks like.
Mm.
Like you can like in the past, I would say in the last like 6 to 12 months, it's changed a lot. So a lot of people now will launch like let's say one creative, and it'll just be like a headline switch. But now what looks as a differentiated asset is if you've got like different images in the background, if you've got like different colors in the background. That way you can Meta will say, okay, this is a net new asset. This is not just like the same asset. Because if you have the same image, you're only changing the text, like the headline. Meta's going to think it's the same creative. So it also plays to the part that we need to get a bit more creative with how our iterations look like, and make sure it's kind of playing to Meta's like best practices and what they think is a net new asset.
And have you seen this at all? We worked with a clothing brand 2 or 3 years ago and believe this is what we saw, but we kept iterating same type of image, like you're saying, copy, learning
Mm.
experience once again. And over time, it was performing, it kept performing, but over time, the CPMs in that account started to rise and the performance started to decline in that account. And we believe it's because we weren't refreshing all new creative enough.
Yeah, we had the similar problem, honestly, and I think it was either an apparel or some supplement brand. Is we found something that worked really well, and essentially 80% of the ad account was similar concepts or similar iterations to it. And it's like if you just pull up the Facebook ads library and just scroll on it, it just looks the same, you know? So it's like we kind of just had like this exercise. We're like, why is performance declining? And it's because everything looks the same. Nothing looks differentiated from our asset. We don't have differentiated messaging. It's not really talking to different people. It's not talking to different age groups. So Meta is obviously just going to prioritize and think, hey, you guys are essentially just running like one big fat creative to like one
Mhm.
audience. So frequency is going to dial up, CPMS are going to dial up, um, and that kind of like let us like take a step back and kind of okay, look cool. Let's like figure out some different formats. Let's figure out some ways to, talk to different people, hop on calls with some customers if we can, get some recordings, and then kind of like brainstorm like messaging based on like what really works for them.
Yeah, I mean, creative diversity, super important. That's another buzzword you hear people talk about as well, is just making sure things are mixed up through it.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you're looking at giving a report to a client, there's different ways that you can go about it. One thing that we've seen is some clients like to go over them on call. Some client would prefer just to get the report sent. We generally like to try and at least have a Loom video if we're not going to walk you through it on a call, so we can share the context, the insights. But some clients, you need to adapt how you present the performance reports that way. Have you experienced that? What do you generally find works best for you?
Yeah, usually. So we used to do a performance breakdown at the start of every meeting. So it would be walking through the reporting, what's working week over week, and showing like trend lines. What's changed now, I would say, is hey, every Monday you'll get an update, and it will be
Mm.
like a written update on Slack along with like a Loom video. And what that kind of provides is it's almost like a kickstart to the week that hey, this is how the weekend was, this is what our last 7 days was. And it allows us, and we also like build out initiatives that we want to tackle during the week, right? That way, it kind of gives us an additional 5 to 10 minutes during the meeting to walk through other things.
Mhm.
One thing, the main focus, at least this year, has been we don't want to like keep repeating reporting. Everyone's already looking at the numbers. You know, I think what's important is, yeah, okay, let's discuss maybe certain trend lines on the call, but we need to discuss more impactful things on the call. Like, let's brainstorm creatives. Let's focus on the initiatives that we have mapped out for the week, and then during like offline we can go through like things like reporting. Like I'll walk through like Loom video, go through everything around the metrics on platform on Meta, and then also our internal reporting. Or some clients have triple whale where they've got a lot of their custom expenses added on there, so they're really comfortable with just me walking through like the triple whale dashboard, and going through like, hey, spend increase, new customer revenue increase, things like that. And then kind of finding any trends or any ways that we can like lean more into the spend for.
Do you have any reporting tools or softwares that you lean towards or prefer?
I really actually like the triple whale like dashboard.
Mhm.
It's just so easy to add in the expenses. As long as everything's accurate, it's pretty dialed. I've tried to use like Supermetrics. Have had massive issues with like syncing it and getting like some of the like the API connectors to work. So kind of moved away from like using like automated dashboards on Google, but I like to use like Triple Whale mostly for like on platform understanding net profit day over day, and then we kind of have like a custom Excel spreadsheet that someone in our team will like fill out every day, which could be like almost treated like a daily P&L.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Well, if you're talking to a marketer or to a media buyer or even a creative strategist about generating reports for clients, what would be one tip that you would give them as we close out the conversation?
Yeah, I think the tip I would follow is I would ask, ask the founder first, what are the most important metrics to your business? And then I would just do a financial audit on their business and then build a reporting doc from there. Because you want to understand how quickly new customer revenue is growing, how efficient new customer acquisition is, and then how quickly your returning customer revenue is growing, and kind of like map those together. So I would focus on those core metrics to start with, and also making sure you've got like blended ROAS in there. So like this metrics I mentioned at the start of the call, I would make sure you have all those in place first, and then you can dive deeper into including things like net profit, contribution margin, OPEX, but keep it really simple at the start. Don't overcomplicate it. Have like bare minimum stuff. Have some on platform metrics, and then from there you can start expanding it and making it a little bit more detailed. If this is like your first time you're doing it.
That makes total sense. Well, this was a good conversation. I feel like I had a couple ideas pop up throughout it. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your insights.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.